Hi everyone, my name is Tushar Puri. I'm the CEO at Pegasus One. Today we're going to took a deep dive into some of the challenges we have seen specifically in implementation of AI projects and how the data in AI projects can impact the bias and related aspects of AI implementations. I have with me our CTO Stefan Beely, so I'll have him get started and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Yep. Hey, Tushar, thanks for that introduction. Yeah, AI does have the potential to revolutionize industries. I mean, it's gone beyond just hype now and is actually, functional and producing some very useful and intriguing results. And we see that in various industries, from healthcare to finance. But we have to keep in mind that with this great power also comes a great responsibility. And one of the most pressing issues that we face today is ensuring that the AI systems that we build and deploy do not inadvertently perpetuate or exacerbate existing biases or even introduce new ones. So today, Tushar and I are going to briefly outline the main factors that we've seen that can contribute to bias in AI implementation and some ways that those can be remedied.
Sure. Stefan, the most common challenge which we have seen, which does run into bias-related issues, is related to lack of represented data. As an example, it's very prevalent in some of the data sets we have seen in healthcare. If the healthcare data is not encompassing enough to cover relevant races or even something as simple as, say, in the case of skin cancer, if it doesn't have enough information for all
Yeah.
the skin tones, the outcomes which we have seen are biased or are not reliable. Another area which we have seen the impact of lack of represented data is computer vision, such as facial recognition algorithms. If the data sets are not and doesn't have all the relevant skin tones or people of the pictures of people of color, and that impacts how the outcomes would be. So it's very important that whatever data we are using, we ensure the population or the strata on which the AI outcomes will be implemented
Hmm.
have all the representative data. And if it doesn't, we need to be very explicit about it that it can only be used for subset of population.
Yeah.
But that's most common and probably also the easiest one to fix.
Yep.
What else can you think of?
Well, I agree. You're totally right there. You have to have, complete data set, especially if you're evaluating along the complete data set. So there's things you can do. I think you can do data rebalancing and maybe diversification. These AI systems that are trained on historical data can reinforce and perpetuate some of these historical biases. And, like you said, they may not provide fair incomes if they aren't included in the data. So, but like as an example, credit scoring algorithms, they rely on historical financial data. They look at, loan repayment histories, credit card usage, some of your existing debts. However, this data can be biased against certain groups, such as young people who haven't had an opportunity to build a credit history. So how can you analyze, this data set, using AI for young people when they're not included? Another example might be marginalized communities that haven't had fair access to financial services. Um, so, the training data that the AI use can overrepresent individuals from certain demographic groups that have had more access to credit and have been using credit more. So, if you're looking this at a entire universe of people, this could result in a model that's going to be less accurate or fair to those people that are not that are underrepresented in the data. And then this can lead to a cycle, kind of a negative feedback loop where individuals from certain backgrounds are systematically deemed less creditworthy. And it's going to further limit their access to financial services. So,
Right.
to try to compensate, like for this specific example, and to improve the fairness in the credit scoring models, financial institutions, they can diversify and maybe rebalance their training data by incorporating alternative data sources. I think that would help enhance some of the fairness, but it also can broaden the customer base by
You mean you mean broader data sources, but also bring in different type of data. Say for younger folks, it can instead of including mortgage, it can have payment for credit cards or payment for cell phone bills or utility payments.
Yeah, or even look at payment services like, I don't know if Zelle and Venmo, some of the new payment services, are those being included? Now, if we do include those, maybe some of the older group that's not using them might not have that included. So you really got to know your data and know what questions you're trying to answer to make sure that you have complete data um, for the questions that you're asking. Um, there's other strategies you can use for rebalancing your data. Um, you can, you can reweight the data. There's a technique called synthetic data generation. Um, other things like stratified
Smart.
sampling. Yeah, SMOte. Now, there's somewhat of a danger in doing that, in that, you're some people would say, hey, you're making up data by using something like SMOte, but done correctly, using a good algorithm, it can really ensure a balanced representation of the various demographic groups. Right, Tushar?
Right.
I
No, I
mean,
agree with that.
yeah,
Well, that probably dives into the other aspect of course, synthetic generation of data can have its arguments against it and for it, but that dovetails into the other aspect of lack of transparency and explainability of a lot of AI models. There are many AI models, especially the deep learning models, which more or less behave like black boxes.
yeah,
Most times we do not know the source of data, the methodology of collection of information, and how different aspects of the data was used. So in such cases, it's important that we implement, what we call XAI, the explainable AI technique, so we can provide guidelines to whoever is using the information to understand how at first place the information was gathered, what features were used, and what features they may not want to use from their data, so they can implement synthetic data analysis for such features. So, we can use tools like Lime and shapely additive explanations to provide
yeah.
more explanation, better explanation, uh, to the data sets we have. So that way we know the results which we are getting, why we are getting, and how and where uh, techniques like smart synthetic data analysis can come into picture and help. Explainability is a big thing, which unfortunately is missing to a large extent.
Right, yeah, yeah. I mean, really, you got to select the correct data parameters and try to make sure you've got a complete data set. I mean, when you're developing AI models, selecting the right data parameters is crucial to ensuring the fairness. I mean, another example, I like using examples, is in hiring algorithms. What is the definition of a qualified candidate? Um, I mean, you have to carefully consider that to avoid biases, um, because there could be irrelevant factors like ethnicity, gender, or educational background. I mean, really, you need to define the parameters that are the qualifications based on the core skills needed for the job, rather than an aggregated historical data that might reflect societal biases.
Right,
Um,
and one can easily dispute, ethnicity or even the schools you went for
yep.
undergrad or grad does have correlation with a candidate's success, but probably we need to take a step back and is it really the school and or the ethnicity, or there were other profiles of this candidate which made them successful or not successful? So it's very important to keep a keen eye on those factors so we can eliminate overall bias in the data.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're looking to hire a candidate
Uh,
because, yeah, you're looking for certain skill sets. So if you start letting some of those implicit biases creep in, like, oh, I want to look at somebody who's from an Ivy League only, or whatever, then that's introducing a bias when really you should be focusing
yeah,
on
so
specific skills and experience relevant to the job.
yeah, so that's almost like AI world. We can say avoid proxy biases, things which you
Exactly.
would feel
Yes.
are common sense, and common sense is probably the most uncommon thing in real world. So
Yep.
you really
Yep.
peel the onion and understand what made a candidate more successful than others. So
Yeah.
I guess it's important. So overall, I feel like overall there are four aspects which can help us remove bias in AI decision. One, making sure we have representative data for at least the population we are going to implement algorithms on. We have done relevant and needed balancing and diversification of data, which can even include aspects like synthetic data generation. And our data sets and or algorithms are transparent and we are able to explain the results based on that, which is to me is the biggest problem right now. If we start once we at least in the implementation we have seen where we use off the shelf data sets or algorithms. And then most important one, like you were discussing, it's important to really understand the relevance of selected parameters for a decision making. I think these four put together can really help
Yeah.
everyone develop AI systems which are, if not 100% bias proof, but significantly bias proof.
Yep. I totally agree. I mean, those are good practices in any kind of analysis, but
Right.
they carry a lot of weight here, certainly with AI, and help us all come to better answers.
Okay. This was helpful, Stefan. I hope our listeners will be able to take some important points from here and start using those. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.